Euaoi.
Have you ever felt like you've been out of the loop on some fad since it feels like you just heard about it when it was probably popular for a while? Because that's how I feel with Stanley Cups. And no, I'm not referring to the NHL trophy with the same exact name. I first heard about the Stanley Cup when one of my relatives got it as a Christmas gift plus some accessories for it, and it was something they asked for. I felt puzzled because it was something that they asked for, meaning they probably knew about it for a while, and happened to know other people who own Stanley Cups, when this was my first time hearing about it. Since that moment, I've been hearing about Stanley Cups more and more in casual conversations. I've been seeing more people drinking from their Stanley Cups in public, and I've been hearing more about them in the news. This just made me wonder, how did a cup become a cultural phenomenon almost overnight? This just made me want to look deeper into the history behind the Stanley Cup, what caused it to become so popular, and the stupid things people have done regarding the Stanley Cup craze. With all of that out of the way, let's dive right into it. The Stanley Cup was first invented in 1913 by William Stanley Jr. when he fused vacuum insulation and the strength of steel into one portable bottle, inventing the all-steel vacuum bottle. The steel bottle was revolutionary at the time because most insulated bottles at the time were made of glass. Glass bottles weren't that effective because they often shattered when dropped, as you would expect, and were expensive to replace. As for how durable the cups are, a trucker once drove his 80,000-pound 18-wheel rig over it. It was scratched, but his coffee was still hot. Other tales include bottles that have survived 1,600-foot tumbles down mine shafts, drops out of B-29 bombers during World War II, and a gas main explosion that reduced a Maryland hotel to cinders, among many others. Stanley introduced the 40 US fluid ounce quencher bottle in 2016, and as you can tell by the time it was introduced, the cup was not an instant success. One key to the cup's popularity was that Stanley tried to expand its consumer base to women, since the Stanley brand was primarily marketed towards workmen and outdoorsmen at that time.
Aladdin Stanley Thermos. Stanley, the top all-steel thermos bottle that's completely dependable and built to take a bounding year after year. Get the top one, because a thermos bottle means more to you than a picnic. It's some kind of top thermos bottle.
Our Adventure 17-ounce bottle is leak-proof and packs light. The BPA-free double-walled vacuum insulation keeps the cold out and the heat in for 12 hours. And that means they're out there doing what they love, longer. That's our kind of story. That's a Stanley.
Appointed the new president of Stanley. For those of you who aren't familiar with Riley's history, he was the same guy that helped make Crocs become popular. You know, Crocs, those goofy-ass shoes that only your parents wear. When Riley came out on board, he did a listening tour around the company to hear from employees about what was working and what wasn't. One employee mentioned a group of women in Utah who ran a commerce blog called The Buy Guide. Buy Guide co-founder Ashley LeSueur had purchased her first quencher at a Bed Bath & Beyond store in 2017. She fell in love with the product and quickly began gifting it to friends and recommending it to her followers. In 2019, she tried to make a case for Stanley to continue production of the quencher, but the sales numbers weren't there. Instead, Stanley gave her another option: make a wholesale order to sell quenchers directly to her Buy Guide audience. This ended up paying off because those quenchers sold out within days. The quencher sold so well, in fact, that it ended up replacing the iconic Stanley bottle as the brand's top-selling product in 2020, and it hasn't let go of that top spot since. Another factor behind the quencher's popularity is that Stanley sold the cup in a wide array of colors, almost making the product feel like a collector's item. Stanley has released the quencher in over 100 colors, with some fans beginning to build collections. Riley explained the color expansion by saying, "We see all the time that our customer wants her quencher to match her fit, her nail polish, her car, her mood, her kitchen. We're serving her where she wants the product." The cup became a social media phenomenon, especially on TikTok. The hashtag #StanleyTumbler has been viewed more than 900 million times, and the product has been the star of many viral videos. Helping drive the excitement is Stanley's strategy of releasing new colors in limited edition drops, advertising the latest additions to its roster on social media. Riley also capitalized on the quencher's viral success by pushing for collabs with celebrities and brands. These limited edition drops and celebrity collabs are a factor as to why the cup is so overly popular today. As if it wasn't already obvious, these cups have a massive cult following. But just how big? TikTok creator Chelsea Espejo first learned about the quencher in 2022. She now has a collection of 47 cups. The quencher is frequently released in limited edition colors that sell out within minutes. A recent collaboration with Starbucks resulted in a red quencher that was being resold on eBay for hundreds of dollars the same day it dropped. When Target introduced new quencher colors recently, some stores had to place restrictions on how many a customer could buy, limiting them to 2 per person. One collector named Emily Farlander made her way to her local Starbucks at 5 in the morning, the same day the Starbucks collab was released, determined to get her hands on the limited edition item.
I do simple modern to Stanley, like pinks to purple. Do this light purple, wisteria, dark purple, and I can organize all the non-Stanleys.
In fact, there have been some people who have even gotten in trouble trying to get their hands on some Stanley cups or make some kind of profit off of them. One instance being that some Target workers got fired for trying to purchase the cups from the store they work at. A Target worker named Arnacelli Bernal and several of her co-workers were fired after purchasing cups, apparently in violation of company policy. Bernal, a full-time worker, was just shy of her second anniversary with Target and bought her cup 2 weeks ago from a Starbucks barista before the start of her 10 a.m. Friday shift in Delaware. The following Monday, she said her managers told her there would be an investigation into employees' cup purchases, which concluded with her termination on Wednesday. Not only has the Stanley Cup craze costed people their jobs, it also got some people arrested as well. A 23-year-old Sacramento woman was arrested for taking a shopping cart of 65 Stanley Cups without paying for them. The total value of those cups was estimated to be around $2,500. Apparently, there are people who drank too much of the Stanley Cup Kool-Aid to the point where people are willing to throw away their lives over these cups. There are also people who even treat Stanley Cups as a status symbol and shun people who don't drink from Stanley Cups. A mom called out parents in a viral TikTok claiming she bought her daughter a name brand Stanley Cup after her peers at school mocked her for toting her under $10 Walmart knockoff. The mom also said she could afford to get a Stanley Cup, but said she didn't really need one.
This is the cup that we got our daughter for Christmas. This is not a Stanley. This is a $9.98 Walmart cup that she said she thought was cute. She is 9 years old. On the second day back to school after Christmas break, she comes home. She's not crying. She's just upset. The girls, all the other girls in her grade, I'm not saying all, maybe she said 9, 10 of them, all got Stanleys for Christmas. And they made sure to let her know that this is not a real Stanley, that this is fake and it's not as cool. So she comes home, she's upset. She asks if she can have a real Stanley. Do I think that a 9-year-old needs a Stanley? No. Do I have one? Yes, I have one. I don't have 50 Stanleys in all different colors. I'm not going to Target and fighting other women or moms to try and get the new Valentine's Day Stanley. I have one.
Not even kids are safe from the brainwashing cult of consumerism. On the opposite end, there were parents from Birmingham who spent over $3,000 to buy her high school-aged daughter, who was obsessed with them, a total of 67 Stanley Cups. I don't know about you guys, but I don't think letting people indulge in their desires is the best way to treat addiction. If anything, it sounds like she needs to go to Stanley Rehab. It almost makes me wonder what's going to happen to these Stanley Cups once the hype has died down. I don't know about you guys, but I think Stanley Cups are going to be the Beanie Babies of the 2020s. What I mean by that is that people are going to be collecting them while the fad is still hot, and once it dies down, the people who collected them are practically stuck with them due to the resale value being absolutely worthless. Bold prediction from me, but I think I'm right. So now you know the whole context behind the Stanley Cup craze and how this one cup managed to take over the world. Terrence Riley, if you're watching this video, I have to say, you're a hell of a businessman. In fact, you're too good, to the point where you should just retire for the sake of humanity. After all that I've said, I now ask this: what do you think of the Stanley Cup craze? Do you think the fad will die down in the coming years, or get even worse? Do you agree with my prediction that Stanley Cups will be the Beanie Babies of the 2020s? Feel free to leave your takes in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.